Fala pessoal do Sharpcast, muito boa tarde ou bom dia, né? Depende do horário que vocês estão vendo. Eu e o Divino estamos aqui para mais uma entrevista no nosso podcast. Hoje a gente vai estar aqui com o Peter Ling, que ele é o proprietário e fundador do Smart Betting Club, que é basicamente uma consultoria para tipsters que querem melhorar seus resultados ou que estão começando sua caminhada nesse mercado a criar um modelo lucrativo. Além também de ter diversas outras áreas de atuação, né, como, por exemplo, consultoria sobre limitações de contas, restrições e coisas nesse sentido. E hoje ele vai estar aqui com a gente para contar um pouquinho da experiência dele, como é que foi a trajetória dele, e trazer um pouco do serviço dele aqui para a gente, que com certeza pode ajudar muita gente. Passa para o Divino aí também, para ele dar um olá para vocês.
E aí, pessoal, estamos aqui hoje para entrevistar, né, igual o Lucas falou aí, o Peter. Espero que vocês gostem do papo aqui. Vai ser um papo um pouco diferente do que a gente já conversou, né, com nossos outros convidados, que vai ser mais a respeito do mercado de tipsters mesmo, né, que é a especialidade dele. Let's get started, Peter. Tell us something about you. How do you knew the betting? How the Smart Betting Club started and things like that? All your life in betting.
Okay. I'll keep it brief. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on today. It's good to connect with people from different parts of the world and talk about betting. From my own perspective, I run the Smart Betting Club with a small team of people. Our goal is to help ordinary people interested in betting to increase their profits. Most of all, that's through our tipster reviews and analysis. These days, it's gone just beyond a tipster working at home. We have advanced tools that scrape data. We have, bots, and we have quite advanced strategies and tools that the serve platforms that provide betting information and advice that people can utilize themselves. So the goal is to help ordinary people with their betting, and those people that don't have the time or the expertise to actually do it themselves, to find products and services and experts that can provide them the platform to do that. So that's the goal of what we do. From my perspective, I've always been interested in betting. I grew up with a love of numbers. I would play games like Championship Manager. I don't know if that was big in Brazil, but like football management games. I spent many hours. Obviously love football, but it was the number side of it, stats, and whether it be games like that or playing. I used to play a card game called Magic the Gathering when I was younger as well, which again was about strategy and about making decisions based on maths. So naturally, betting was an area of interest for me. I was at the time when betting in the UK, because I'm originally from the UK, exploded, and internet betting became so popular, and there was no tax on betting. So just at that time when I was becoming starting to work and getting a job, betting was a really good focal point. So with all of that, yes, just always a love of betting, and that coincided with starting the Smart Betting Club. We were the secret betting club for a few years back in 2006, and it's grown since then really to review betting services and products, and I do a lot of betting myself. So the work I do at the Smart Betting Club helps with my betting, and my betting helps with that, and it feeds each other. So that's a little bit of an intro to me and what I do at SBC.
Okay.
Good. And Peter, when you are a consultant for tipsters, if you can resume like that, right?
Yeah.
When you get a new client, when you have a new member on your Smart Betting Club, how do you start with this client? How is your initial approach to analyze your tips and things like that?
Yeah. So when somebody purchases a membership, so it's a subscription, so you can get free 6 or 12-month memberships, and you gain access to all the information that we publish in the future, but also have published in the past. So that will be our detailed tipster reviews. We have profit reports, which also update on the performance. We have discounts you can get on tipsters and many other things, and you have access to all of that. And really, from that point of view, from that starting point, it depends upon your level of experience. And I have customers and clients that come to me who are quite new to betting, so they need to learn what an each way bet might be. They need to learn how bookmakers work and how to set up a bank And then you might have more experienced bettors who come to me who are looking for, they don't need the basic information, or they don't need things that beginners will need. They want more advanced information. So they'll go jumping into more detailed reviews of some of the high profile products and tipsters that have more, require more experience to utilize. So it really depends upon each customer, and the information is there. So because everyone is very different, it's very hard for me to say, oh, Lucas, everyone's going to have exactly the same approach. You might come to me, Lucas, and I will say, what's your situation? Or you'll fit into a certain area where you want to bet on a certain sport or with a certain way, maybe with exchanges or sharp bookmakers, and you might go find those services. Divino, you might come and say, oh, I'm brand new. I've got all these bookmaker accounts available to me, and I will then point you in the direction of those services that will work best for you, because you can take advantage of your Bet365 or companies that haven't closed you down because you've won, whereas Lucas, you may have been closed down by them. So everyone's very different from that perspective. And then, so everyone's different. And I would say the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And I imagine both of you will be aware of that. You have to be realistic that if you were going to just do 2 minutes a day, then you're not really going to get much reward. But if you put more time into it, if you read the reviews and kind of explore some of the tools, especially, and understand how bookmakers work and how you can make the most of your edges, you will make more from it, as long as you have the right mindset to do that. And that's perhaps something else I haven't spoken about, but the psychology, having the mindset of a bettor, to not look at a day's performance and become emotional about it, or even a week's performance or a month's performance, to look at things dispassionately and through the prism of a lot of data versus, oh, I've won today, I feel great. I've lost today, I feel terrible. And making bad decisions on the back of that. And that's a really important part of what makes someone successful at betting.
So do you accept any kind of clients, or there's some kind of a form that he needs to pass to you with the informations before, and you say no, you come, and or no, we can't help you,
Anyone really, anyone. I mean, some people that, even as hard as I might try, and as much as I'll give them the information, they'll just never learn. They're too deep rooted in perhaps poor behavior. Betting behavior, really. They have preconceived ideas about how they make a profit betting. I can't, you might have somebody that tells you can never make a profit betting odds on, at 1 to 10 or 1.1 in decimal. Well, I can show you ways that you can do that, but some people are very fixed in their mindset that they're unable to challenge their preconceived ideas. So anyone can join. But what I say is, you need to come in with an open mindset and be prepared to, challenge some ideas that you might have. If you've always never made a profit, you've always made a loss, you're probably doing something wrong yourself. Like there's probably something that you're giving up too quickly, or you're making emotional decisions, or you're not setting up with a bankroll correctly and you're too risky. Things like that, really. So, but everyone is welcome, and it's enjoyable to get people from different walks of life, from total beginners. I've had retired people who've bet for years who are now making a profit, or I have, housewives at home who are looking to generate some extra income while their children are asleep, who are betting as well. So it takes all types, and I'm happy to help anyone.
And all around the world too, right? Any nationality?
All around the world. Yeah.
Okay.
Predominantly it's European based, but there are many things that you can do. In Brazil, I imagine that would apply from the work I do.
Yes, and as a company, you guys focus on the I don't know, how can I say it, about become the guy a good tipster, a good bettor, or as a company too. If he wants to open a syndicate or something like that. What are your focus?
Our focus is on the individual. So, but I've no doubt that, I've spoken, I know quite a few people who work at the higher echelon and, work in syndicates and things like that. And inevitably, there's probably not much I can tell them, but it's generally to help the individual. and how they bet. But no doubt people do work together, and I know I've got some traders for different bookmaking firms who are members. So I think people do join even if they are working for the enemy.
Yes.
Good. And when you receive someone, and this person it's already have a spreadsheet with your data, with your tips, which kind of analysis you do with this guy? Which metrics you use to understand if that guy is a good one or if they have to change something?
What he needs
Well,
to do better and all the things that.
Yeah.
It's a really good question, because that's our speciality. Because as an individual, if you don't have that expertise, or even if you do have that expertise, do you have the time and the resource to run that detailed analysis? Is very difficult to find out. Okay, someone's got some data information in front of you, a table of performance, but what happens if you go behind those numbers? What do you find? So I would term it into two forms of analysis. The first one is just the more standard analysis, which would be looking at, well, it's always a little bit different depending on the tipster and the sport, but you might look at odds ranges, you might look at you'll look at the staking plan they use, you'll look at their bankroll, you'll look at their drawdowns, their losing runs. If it's a golf tipster, you might look at how they perform, whether it be win betting each way. If it's a football tipster, you might look at how they perform in handicaps or over-under markets. Those type of things, you'll try and break it down to see if there are any areas where they have a better or worse edge. You might also look and see, have they got lucky? Have they had one or two very big winning bets that have warped their, how their performance appears, and can you replicate that? So that's the more standard analysis, and that is very much sport driven and market driven. And then the more advanced analysis will be things like, we run our Monte Carlo simulations, which you might be familiar with, and they'll provide you'll run like the profile of the service, a million times or however many hundreds of millions of times to work out what you should really expect from a drawdown percentage expectation to things like risk and reward and capital risk. And we'll look at things like Sharpe ratios, dispersion factor, p-values, which will take a look at things like how skillful or lucky they have been, which is the p-value. You'll look at how how volatile their approach is. So like if you're a golf tipster and he might have a 40% ROI, he'll have quite a high volatility. But then if you've got a football tipster working on Asian handicaps at 3% ROI, he'll no doubt have a low one, but then his risk reward might not be as good. So those kind of metrics, those advanced Monte Carlo based ones, give you so much more information. And you don't need to be a maths whiz but you do to run them, to get the answers to that information, but to interpret them and understand what they mean. It's really quite simple, and we apply just a score. So we say this was an excellent score, or this is a poor score. So you can, as a subscriber, you can go, right, well, that's too risky for me, or that doesn't provide enough reward for my risk. So things like that are important.
You said about the golf. It's kind of funny because here in Brazil, our bookies don't let us bet in golf. Right. We know the market when we started to work and interview guys from another syndicates too, and they have too much the matchup golf bet, right? This player against this other one. Here in Brazil, our bookies has only like the champion of this championship, only that, and it's kind of big odds on this kind of market, and it's kind of interesting this, because in American bookies you have all the matchups of these players against each other.
And that's why sometimes the international markets are so different. So
yes.
Can you take advantage of it? Like, I know from what you tell me in Brazil, I probably would be able to take advantage of some of those markets because they're very similar to what we have in Europe. Whereas the American one is like you say, more player matchups and those kind of markets, which Pinnacle drive. So I guess we'll talk about it, but obviously there's a different, what might work in Europe, you might have to adapt it to work it in Brazil or North America. But there are different ways you can do that, and that takes a little bit of time and exploring the market and seeing where those edges play out. But once you get to a certain higher level and it's more beneficial to you, and you understand it, then you can really take advantage of it if you know where you're looking.
Yes, because if you work on the winner of the championship or the matchups besides the two players, it's kind of all different market. You need to change everything you do, right? To do this adaptation.
But one small thing that some bookmakers don't do when they do the outright is that they don't react to money that comes in, especially in golf markets. So on Monday and Tuesday, the market will be reshaped by the bookmakers will put some lazy prices up generally, and then it'll get hammered into shape by the money that comes in. But what you might find is that it gets, in Europe, it's in one particular, there's support for certain players, and often that's quite significant support, but that's not replicated in Brazil or international markets. And if it is replicated, it sometimes isn't replicated in the sub-market. So you might have a guy who's gone from, let's say he's gone from 40 to 1 to 30 to 1 as an outright win. He's seen significant support. But yet in the sub-market, let's say he's top French player, he stayed the same price. That in that particular market, it's not reacted, it's not shifted as it should do, and this price should have dropped there. So that kind of thing is where you can find advantages in the market for sports like that, I find.
Oh, that's a nice one. Because there is another thing too in any market, not only the golf one. It's like being profitable in a short period of time can sometimes be a little easy, in a low period, a short period, right? But maintaining it over the years is what proves your ability as a bettor, right? What would you say are the top ways to stay current and remain profitable beside years and years?
Well, that would go down to the fundamentals of setting up your betting in a correct way, and that would come down to things like bankroll management and understanding of mathematical sequences. So, an understanding of if you have a 2% strike rate of bets that win, what kind of length of losing runs can you endure? And from that, you have the understanding of what your expectations should be, but also you can build your bankroll in such a way as to cater for those bad runs. And that sometimes is, I can give people all the information, all the tools and information, and say, go and follow this way of betting. But inevitably, some people will come back to me and fail because for that they haven't set up correctly. I've said you need this much money, you need €5,000 or £5,000, and they've gone in with 2,000, and then, they just decided one week they're not going to take the bets because they don't think they're as good as their own ideas. So that's generally what I find, is that people aren't consistent and don't set up correctly and underestimate the likelihood of bad runs hitting, and how long they might hit for and how much money they really actually need. Because when you're having a bad run and you haven't set up your bank correctly, it really is unnerving if you, when it comes down to the financials of it, it can really, I guess it can give you sleepless nights. It can cause you all kinds of problems if you've blown your bank and you haven't listened to people or taken the sensible approach. And that's where people can just give up. And before those rewards kick in, if they stuck with it and followed it through and understood the variance that they're likely to endure, the rewards will come back to them. But if you don't set up correctly and have the long-term mindset to do so, then you often fail.
Here, I think we always have to have some metric instead of the profit to understand where you're going with your numbers. And here in Brazil, we have some discussions about this metric. It's the CLV. I don't know if you use that. Yeah. I want to know your opinion, because for us, we a long time ago we start to use and we always have been using the CLV theory. So do you use this for your analysis? You recommend? What do you think about the CLV?
Yeah, it's really important, CLV. It's a really important metric when you're looking at, it's only as important perhaps as sometimes as the markets that you're comparing them to. So if you're looking at really small markets, there's not much money in them. There's not going to be as much value as if you're looking at a big market like an NFL game or something like that. Obviously, CLV is really important from that perspective, when we do analyze that, so we took a look at a basketball tipster recently, equated how much CLV he had, and his performance over time from the time he advises those bets at the size of the markets with Pinnacle and our CLV edge. And often, if it might not be CLV, like for example, we do a lot on horse racing in the UK, and the equivalent of CLV is Betfair SP. So we compare against that for every horse racing tip. So we have the database in place to do that. So you can quickly gauge, how much they're taking advantage of really soft markets and their edge, and then against Betfair SP, which is the benchmark. So if you're a bookmaking trader, you will no doubt use CLV, and then if you're looking at horse racing, you'd use Betfair SP, and that's what they use in industry. So as a bettor, we absolutely need to use it to make informed decisions about who's good or not.
Good.
I have a question about the CLV, because there are some researches and study about it that only works on football, right? What do you think about it, about the other markets? Because if you think about the closing line exactly, always if you get more than it closes, you are in the game. You are on the right side of the game, independent of the sport or the market and things like that. What do you think about it?
I think it matters. I think I wouldn't be so narrow it down to certain sports, and look at the size of the market, the importance of it. If you've got CLV on a really small tennis market, how many people are betting on that? You don't need too much to shift it one way. So it really depends on the liquidity of the market, I would suggest. So it's important. I wouldn't say it's the be all and end all for that reason, but it's an important metric.
Okay.
Good.
You said earlier about in every client of you has some particularities, right? One who bets on the soft books or shops. Is your service, right? Is in your service if you do some kind of methodology to make the account last longer, or to not be restricted or banned on the bookie. Do you have something like that you teach on your I don't know, on your service on these tipsters?
Yes, we have some information about how bookmakers work. We have advice on how to get started with your bookmaker accounts. We've done more in terms of some more podcasts recently, because it's such an evolving topic. You put some information up there, 6 months later, it's changed. So the challenge is to keep on top of that. And we have got some information about, we've been working on what we call our intelligence section. So smaller bookmakers, some comments on that, ratings and how they oversee and how they work. So, if you lose your Bet365 account, well, there's 8 other firms that are copying their odds that you can use that maybe you're not aware of, for example, and other smaller firms. And for example, in the UK and Europe, there's lots of independent licensed firms that allow you to bet with them. And, the more opportunities for that. But to your question in terms of restrictions, we are trying to do more on that, and to give more advice. That's something we have started to look at. Like, what I would say to people is, it's very important early on in the account about what you bet upon, and you guys will no doubt know this, and to get a sense of which bookmakers will allow what on what sports, on what markets, on what size, because you might bet with one firm on one particular sport and they will happily take that business. You take the same approach with a different firm, another bookmaker, and they may be very sensitive to it and not like that at all. And it really depends upon when you do that. And it sometimes becomes a bookmaker to bookmaker specific approach that you need. There's obviously some general advice. Don't start taking ARB straight away. Don't start taking bets that are moving significantly in price in really small markets with any bookmaker straight away. You need to be a bit more thoughtful about that, but because it's so bookmaker specific and it can change, it's really challenging to tell people, and there's so many options out there. Bookmaker X, this is what you do. Bookmaker Y, this is what you do. Bookmaker Z, this is what you do. So it's a difficult topic because it's constantly changing. So try and give some general advice on what to do. Don't rush in. don't go taking silly bets straight away, and try and be more thoughtful with what you bet upon, and think a little bit like a trader, what they might look for. Let's say you work for Bet365 and your job is to identify winning accounts, or even accounts that might win. What are you going to look for? Well, you're going to look for maybe people that have won big bets recently, people that are betting on very small markets, people that are constantly beating closing line. And so if you take that approach and think of it in that way, I think that can really help to, make sure that you don't get caught out and lose an account too soon, because you're always going to lose accounts. If you're profitable, always going to lose them. Don't get frustrated by the fact that you're going to lose them. That's just normal. But have you maximized as much as you can make from that account before you do lose it? And that's the key question.
Yes, because there's not a miracle on this. You don't get caught. Let's say this. As you said, you need to, I don't know, when you lose one account, you have two options, right? You leave the book, or you get another run to keep doing what they're doing. But the people think that there is a way. They are always looking for it, to not lose an account, but you can't do it. You will always lose.
You will always lose it. I'll give you
unless you are a bad better, right?
Yeah, and they're the right people, right? We all need friends who've had that Bet365 account for 6 years and lost £10,000 in it or whatever, or only ever bet on roulette. So yeah, they're tricky, and that's another difficult conversation, isn't it, about multi-accounting and how to do it correctly and in the way that you're not going to get caught out, because it is on that front. It is also a technological or an arms race. What does the bookmaker do, and how does it work out how they might be connected? So the best thing, like I say, is to make sure that you maximize the accounts that you legitimately do have. And what I do find is that when you start to understand how each bookmaker works and where they're strong and weak, and talk to other people and get a sense of what they find, you can often find those bookmakers feel quite soft in certain areas. I'll give you an example. I live in Ontario now, which is in Canada, and it was legalized betting a few years ago. And right now there are lots of firms who are more focused on player acquisition rather than squeezing as much money from the players that they do have. And some firms have been a lot better than others at identifying and kicking out me or other people who live here as winning bettors. And there's one particular firm who for 6 months works so soft on one particular sport. And I was able to identify that and take advantage of it. And I shared that with my network. I was able to take advantage of that for about 6 months, until more recently they upgraded their systems and changed their odds supplier, and that's all gone. So my point is that you maximize them when those edges are available to you and you take advantage of it, but you can't weep when those edges disappear, whether it be because your account's closed or the bookmaker's changed. I don't want to name them because I'm still using them for another no type of betting. I was thinking about it. Can I name it? I was like, no, it's still too valuable. I don't want them to let them on.
Peter, when you was talking about this limitation, you said a lot of times about the chance that always happen, and the bookmaker, and in the life of the bettor. So here, what we discover at this market we are, the things will be always changing, and I think it's one of the biggest quality for a bettor. It's to be able to change, and thinking about this quality, this skill that a bettor have to have, which quality or skills you think a bettor have to have? I don't know if this is right on this way, but
makes sense.
What do you think?
So the quality is, it goes back to what I said earlier. You absolutely need to have a foundation. So that would be a bankroll, understanding of sequences, of variance, But once you start to make a profit from it, that becomes, you kind of know that, and it's second nature. It's very easy. And then it becomes about understanding the bookmakers and how to adapt and evolve your betting based upon what you can bet on and where you can bet. And then you get an understanding and experience of each bookmaker's strengths and weaknesses. And it might be you shifting to exchanges and you shift into sharp bookmakers, and you're betting more with Pinnacle or into brokers, or you're betting onto the exchanges in certain ways. And often you need more of a bankroll and experience behind and time behind you to do that. So it's adapting as you move along. So you lose those accounts, the soft accounts, the Betanos, the Bet365s, whichever soft bookmakers people in Brazil are betting with, probably very similar names that I'm familiar with. And you can either A, go down the multi-accounting route, or B, you can shift along and start to bet on sharp sports or in different ways, which allow you to get on. And so that's the adapting and the evolving your betting and moving along, and never getting too hung up on, I can only bet with this one firm in this one way. Edges exist, and then they move on. The bookmaker closes that loophole, or they close your account, and then you're done. You can't become too fixated on that and never move past it and get too frustrated. You just have to look and have those conversations with people in your network. Try and build a network of people, of friends, of contacts who have a similar interest, and share that intel, that knowledge, and then you can adapt your betting. So if one door closes, you kind of got an idea of which door you're already going to go through next. And some friends tell me, who are much better bettors than I am, make the most of your edges while they're available to you. Hit them as hard as you can, because tomorrow they may be gone and you're going to regret, as long as it's all within the realms of what you can afford to bet sensibly and within your bankroll. But you can't dwell on it too long if it goes, and make the most of it while it's there, then move on and move along, because the betting market is fluid, and what works today might not work tomorrow for you. They might change their odds supplier, like the firm I mentioned before. So you just need to have that mindset of being able to fix a problem. Okay, there's a challenge, I'll fix this problem, and I back myself to find a solution or find a different edge when one dries up. So that firm I mentioned before, the reason I don't want to name them is that as soon as they changed their odds supplier, I stopped betting in one particular way that had been successful to me on the particular sport I was using, and now I'm doing it on a different style and different sport. So I feel like that's going to give me a lot more edge and ability to bet with them much longer than just continue to hammer the same old one, which they're a lot hotter on these days. So just one example of how, I certainly have approached it, and many of my peers, they seem to do it as well.
Okay. We talked earlier about the metrics you use to watch on your tipsters, right? On your clients. Yeah. We said about the P-value, about the Monte Carlo, but what statistical methodologies do you think a new bettor can start his tests? Something like I don't know, Poisson or something like that. Can you say it?
Yeah, well, there is some really good. There's a calculator I shared recently on the Twitter feed. I think there's a tennis tipster called Nishikori who tweeted a calculator based on the work of Joseph Buchdahl. I don't know if you're familiar with Joseph. He's
yes, I guess I read some books of him.
Yeah, and there's a calculator, for example, that an example of a really good free resource which enables you to put in, I think it's like your strike rate and your ROI, and it talked about the different sequences you would have over short periods of bets. So I think there's lots of really good free resources out there to give people the tools and information to understand what you might experience as a bettor. And what I would advocate to people is don't just look at what you can make, look at what you can lose, because when you're making money, it's fine.
It's easy.
It's like, well, what am I going to spend all this money on tomorrow? It's not really a big problem, is it? The biggest problem is how much you're going to tell your wife that you made. So that's your biggest issue is, you made £10,000. How much you're going to tell her you made? The issue really comes is when you're losing money. How you're going to adapt, how you can handle that, how you can adapt to it. So once you understand what you can really lose, then you can, have that mindset and have it set up correctly, So there's some really good free tools that, like I say, that will give that information to you. And I don't think you need a degree in maths to understand it. Some of them are really simple and straightforward. And all you got to know is, you don't need to know how the working is out of how they get there. You just need to know what the output tells you and what that means. But many bettors don't want to know about what they can lose, just fixated about what they can win. And it's really important to learn about the losing side of it first.
Yes. As we started better, you will lose on the most of times on the beginning.
You will, and most things that are valuable are high risk, high reward. So, you bet on a sport like golf. It's very high reward, but it's very high risk. So you might bet for 6 months and not make anything, and then the 7th month you make all of that back plus double. So, you really need to get that mindset. Like you say, you're going to lose more than you're going to win, and how you handle that is so important.
Yes.
Talking about this, the betting stuff, it's always about win and you lose, and you lose. And a lot of people wants to live with this marketing. How you advise someone who wants to live with this market? Because some month you make $10,000, and then another month you will lose $5,000. So we have to manage this. How you advise people who wants to do this?
Well, you don't need to look at how much you've made on a daily basis or weekly basis even. I mean, I kind of settle up mine every week. I have a handle on it. I don't keep a spreadsheet. I keep some notes and I keep some records which I update, and I know where I am. I've got my balances. I know where I am from that. And I don't get too bothered either way, up or down, over several weeks. I'm expecting to go through bad runs. I expect all of that. It's quite normal to have those narrow defeats, just as it is to have those narrow victories. And my advice is not to live it out too much. You can live it out a little bit if you can enjoy it and you don't become too emotional about it and make bad decisions off the back of that. So my advice is to not live it out, to give it time. That's the most important thing. It's not the timing into an event, it's the amount of time you spend in it. So I don't know if I advise someone to start tomorrow betting on a particular sport, if that's going to be the start of a good or a bad run. But what I do know is if they stick at it for 12, 18 months or however long, they will reap those rewards. So yeah, that's my advice, is to give it time and treat it professionally in that way, to not make decisions based on a few months bad run or a losing run of some kind. That goes back into what I spoke previously about understanding losing, because then you can go, well, this is quite normal. I've lost for 2 months, but from my calculations early on, I know this is quite normal. I'm not going to panic. I'll stick to my bankroll and I'll continue doing this because I know that month 3, month 4, I'll reap the benefits.
Good.
Let's say I am your client, right? And my method is validated as a profitable one, right? As the time passed, to being profitable is the last of our problems. Our problems is having accounts, putting money in the market. How do you guide your clients against this type of adversity, as I can say? And what kind of other problems you are able to see instead of having accounts, put money on market and things like that? What more can you tell us about it?
I think the other problem is people getting paid.
Yes, it's a problem too.
Do you have that? Yeah. So, there's 3 things, right? So it's what to bet on, where to bet, and getting your money out when you do it. And of the 3 things, I think, the last 2 are more difficult than the first one these days. The information is there to win. That's the easier part. Getting on and getting paid is the trickier part. So that's definitely a problem, even with licensed firms, is in the UK, especially where I have a lot of contacts and I originally am from. It's a big problem with big firms who they won't pay you, and then they say basically, what are you going to do? And you have to go through this whole process to try and get your money. And ultimately, if you're in the right, you will get your money. But the idea is they try and put people off. So for every one person that gets their money, how many don't? Even though they legitimately should have it. So that's absolutely a problem. With restrictions, it goes back to a lot of what we spoke about. Maximize as much as you can those accounts that you have available. Now, you can bet in such a way as to not be obvious straight away. So I wouldn't go and hammer a Bet365 account straight away, or whatever firm. I use them because they're the biggest one, right? To bet on very sensitive sports. You might want to mix up your betting, or you might want to bet on sports where they're not quite as likely going to spot you as a sharp individual, and it might take you longer to get to that stage of making a profit. And to take advantage of that. You know, some things that I've advised people is to look at how they can place bets in multiples as well. So you're hiding one good bet in a bunch of multiples, or you're hiding one good bet amongst a series of other neutral value bets that you've placed. So if a trader goes and looks at your account, they might not identify that straight away. They might just see other bets that you've placed that don't trigger their interest quite so much. But it's very tricky. And one of the things we have like a 5 stages guide that we have. So stage 1 will be a beginner. Now, whether that's new to betting or always lost money. And so assuming you have soft bookmaker accounts, all the way up to stage 5, which is where you don't have any, and you're betting with either betting exchanges, sharp bookmakers, or if you have availability into betting shops. And so we're trying to advise people all along that process, because we know, everyone's different and they may lose accounts, or they will lose accounts. And then if they have got to that stage, they hopefully have more bankrolling experience, and then they can bet with some of these sharper firms and put more time into it and more bankroll into it to benefit from it. But it's a very difficult topic with restrictions, because there's no one specific set of advice you can give. I find it is very bookmaker specific these days, and some firms just won't let you win at all, right? So they have such very hot trading teams, risk management teams with some of these firms. They're very, very sharp indeed. So it can be very difficult, even with the best, most experience and the best will in the world. With some firms, they're going to pick you out quite quickly.
Okay. We have this kind of problem here in Brazil too, because the market is not regulated. It's not a prohibited market,
Yeah.
But it's not regulated. It's on the process of regulating, and we have many books here in Brazil that don't pay you. A lot of ones. So it's kind of hard to, as you said.
Are they all offshore then?
And we can't process them. We can't do anything. It's just okay. Sorry.
Because you're betting illegally with these firms, because they're not legal. If they don't pay you, what the police going to do, or what the authorities going to do? But you shouldn't be doing that in the first place.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah. But it's interesting, because actually where I am now in Ontario, we had the same situation, and now we're on the other side of it, where they're all legal. So it is, obviously there are less books, and you've got, it's not there are pros and cons to it, but from a bettor's perspective, at least I know that I'm going to get paid, because they have to abide by the regulator and to maintain their license. So hopefully, when you get into the other side of it, you might lose some of the advantages, but at least you're going to get paid. If you see money in your account, it's actually going to come to you.
Yes. We know that betting is a long-term game, a long period game. We can experience long variations of profits, until up or down, right? For someone who wants to make a living from betting, as Lucas said, how do you think they should organize themselves to deal with the variation, only with the mindset or you think there's something more that the guy can do?
Is that to make a living of it, to live off your betting?
Yes.
Yeah.
To pass to pass for the variations, the long ones,
so,
bad runs.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Those professional bettors, I don't frame myself as one, because I run the business of SBC, so that provides me with a stable income, but my betting obviously adds to that. But I would never want to be in a position personally where I just relied on my betting income, because it can just go up and down. Month one I could do really well, but month 2 and 3 I don't, and then when I'm in month 4 I don't really know where I am. It's the stress of needing to have a win in month 4 perhaps, or to think, is this terminal for me? So those people who are able to make that pay themselves, I think they have a lot of experience, and B, a lot of money behind them, like a big nest egg to cover those bad runs. And it takes several years to get to that point, to build that bankroll to enable you to do that. It is challenging. I think it sounds exciting, but I chatting to somebody who was a full-time professional in football on Friday, and became very clear, how he's in 7 years as a full-time bettor, what he bets on has changed significantly over that time, and how the markets are in just 7 years. So how long can you make it work? And are you confident that when it changes next, you're going to be able to make enough to live off it full time? Well, perhaps if you're 25 or you're at an age where you don't have a lot of responsibilities or bills around you, but if you're, I have a house and 2 children and a wife and whatever else, so it would be very easy for me to just make that jump unless I had substantial bankroll behind me. But if you're 25 and you've got none of that, and you've just got your your rent to find in a month, then that might be a bit more doable. But from that top level perspective, it's very challenging to do that, because there are so many things to juggle and consider.
As it's hard, really hard.
And Peter, now we are in the end of our episode. So I want to do some questions. It's a little bit different. Here in Brazil, I don't know if Europe or United States are like this, but here we have some aggressive marketing, on our in our industry and whatever else. So you think this kind of marketing, this aggressive marketing, it's a bad thing for our marketing, or you don't mind about that?
Do you mean marketing of betting services, of tipsters? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, about everything, about the when they ask you to register on a book and things like that, not only a tipster, right? Can be only a marketer, as we can say like that.
Sure. Well, I think what you find in more mature markets, so I referenced the UK again, because right now there's a sea change going on there with what's called affordability limits. You can't get money into those accounts without someone asking you, can you afford to bet in this way? And what's happened there is that there was aggressive marketing and bookmakers who are incentivized to make a profit from your losses, right? So they want you to lose, and the more you lose, the more they make. And they created this problem where they were so aggressive and they were so unregulated to that point that they made so much money and created so much harm that you have the opposite apply, which again has the knock-on impact is that people start using the black market or they stop betting. So that's something that is a knock-on effect of aggressive marketing from the bookmakers. And so there's a real delicate balance, and I don't know what's going to take place in Brazil. I can see what's taking place in North America in different parts. And again, sometimes it's irresponsible, and you can see it's the start of the same pattern where they're being very aggressive and speaking in such a way, and their offers and their marketing is creating the same problems, and you can just see that going down the same pathway. And when it comes to things like tipster, I think there's a lot on social media, but for me, social media is just, in all aspects of it, is just inherently, there's so much of it that's just terrible. And it's so short term, and so you've got to be really careful if you use social media in any form of work or life, not to go overboard on it, to try and filter through the nonsense and try and find the safe stuff, the stuff that's actually of value and useful. And it takes like a personal, BS filter, what do you want to call it, to try and work that through. And if you haven't got the experience and you're quite vulnerable, or you're naive to an industry, you have to be so careful. And that's very much with that side of it. So in general, from our perspective, we don't do anything with any tipster that just exists on social media. We like to see a fundamental platform, an individual or a company, and we like to see, evidence of a business, not just based on sending some tweets and, having a bookmaker affiliate link and telling people how great they are because they got 8 out of 9 on the weekend in a football accumulator. Because, you get enough monkeys typing the works of Shakespeare, you will finally get a universe where they have the complete works, don't you? So I don't know if you know that particular story, but, you're always going to find someone that will try and sell you something, and which looks too good to be true, and invariably it often is, especially on social media. So
that's because on the betting markets we have the addiction problem, right?
Yep.
It's kind of,
I
know in the UK it's kind of hard, the government on the responsible gaming and everything like that, to reduce the problems with the addiction.
Well, it comes down to because bookmakers were not reined in. So you had bookmakers who've created this problem because they, they had people that they didn't care if they put in more money than they actually had, if they had stolen that money from their boss, or, they put their life savings in, or they maxed out their credit cards. And so ultimately you have these very, very sad stories where people taking their own lives, or their lives, they're not taking their own lives, they're ruined lives, and not just theirs, but families and people around them, because bookmakers became greedy and they took advantage of people because it became a game to them. So you have the opposite now, and there's a lot more understanding about it and exposure to it, which is a positive thing, to say not everyone should gamble. And if you do, you should gamble in a responsible way. But a lot of it's gone too far the other way now, where they're trying to limit everybody, and in doing so, they push people away to the black market, where there's no oversight about looking after customers. So if you have a gambling problem and you go to the black market, they're literally putting Google adverts in with key terms to try and find people who are searching for terms surrounding addiction. So it's a really difficult balance for regulators, and as bettors, as people that like to bet and enjoy betting, it's very, very frustrating because these extreme examples are dictating what happens to everybody, and the majority of us that are in the middle here, that enjoy it and do so sensibly, we're kind of paying costs for that.
Yes, that's true. Let's talk about a little more on business. In last few months, we have experienced in first hand here, our company, the importance of the networking, of sharing information, meeting good people on betting. How do we evaluate the importance of this kind of network as a bettor?
It's really important, really important. Just connect with people that enjoy betting. It might be people that you meet or already know. It might be people you get in touch with through forums. That's a really positive way to do it, or Twitter. There's communities there. Just through your general life, as you go about it, you might find people who have the same. Like, I made some friends here through contacts who say, "Oh, Pete's into betting, and you should go and meet this person because he is into betting." And from that, you start to make some interesting connections and sharing information. So that's really important. And it might not be like I'm telling my friends, this is what I'm betting on, and this is what you should take. Sometimes it is. It might just be, oh, this bookmaker, this offer, or this particular market, or whatever it is, looks weak, right, for taking advantage of, and that kind of information. Or it might be, dealing with how you're struggling with certain things if you're betting, you're losing runs, or whether it be, access to information. So on that perspective, it is really valuable, and moving forward, if you're trying to make connections and trying to find other things to bet upon, the more people you meet, the more contacts you have. Like, it does make a difference, especially if you have a phone call or have a meeting in person. Just go for a beer or coffee or whatever it is with someone, or an event. It can make a difference. I co-hosted an event in London called the Smart Bash in June, and July. Sorry, and Sorry?
It's in Las Vegas, the Bet Bash?
No, this was Smart Bash. This was in London.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, that was a much bigger event than ours, I'm sure. But Smart Bash was what I put together with another company called Bookie Bashing, and we had 60 individuals that we invited, and we could have probably invited 5 times as many. And the feedback from it was entirely positive. And we're going to look at doing something on a bigger scale next year, because there's such demand and for events like that, just to meet people. And from the back of that myself, I got a lot of contacts and connections and work, if you like, from that, and betting expertise. And it just shows the value in meeting people and having a conversation, and then finding out what they bet on, and realizing, oh, actually I do something similar, or I'm very interested in that. Maybe I can help you here if you help me there. So it's really important, I think, especially now we're out of COVID, to actually get out and to meet people.
Suppose we here want to join the Smart Betting Club. What would we need to do?
Just go into smartbettingclub.com, click the subscribe link, and you'll be away. You'll have access to all the information, and you get all our access to our back catalogue, all our reviews and reports, and what we call our Hall of Fame tipsters, which are the best products and services that we recommend. And we use them ourselves, so I don't use every single one. I just don't have the time. But many of us here, we all use different aspects of different services that fit into our timeline and our risk and when we're able to bet, or what bookmakers we have. So you'll find all that information, and you join in a community of people that like to bet, and it's not just our hobby, it's our full-time or even part-time income, and we really enjoy it, and we kind of live out every day. So if you like betting, and I know that what we can do can work in different countries and areas. So whilst we might have a tool that's focused on, or review a product which is focused on what the European market allows you to bet and make, you can often see quite quickly where you correlate it with bookmakers in Brazil, and see, oh, look, there's lots of markets here. We talk about golf before. I probably want to go and check out a Brazilian bookmaker now and go and see what they're offering, because there are different ways that you can take advantage of it, because there are edges everywhere with different bookmakers. So yeah, join SBC, and even if you're in a place of the world that we haven't spoken about, I'm pretty sure if you have bookmakers available to you, there'll be edges that you can take advantage of.
Good. If I understood correctly, every topic we cover here, the SBC can help, right? Because you have network, you have analysis from tipsters, you have tipsters, right? It's a place where people can find a tipster. So everything we talk about here today, SBC can help. So I think it's a really good company.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I like to think, I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy helping people with their betting. It's a real passion of mine, and I like nothing more than seeing someone that comes in and they send an email saying, you've helped me in this way. So that's the more people that I can do that for, the better, because we're only a tiny proportion of the amount of people that bet out there. You think about how many people win, 2%, and then it books that. We've got a tiny proportion of it. So we're just making like throwing a stone in a big ocean, and help trying to fight back a little bit against, take some money back from the bookmakers. So
the objective of SBC is to help bettors, right? What advice would you give to someone who is just starting their betting journey, the first one?
I would say you just take it easy early on. You don't need to go from never betting or always making a loss to making 5 figures profit. Just try and make a profit. If you've never made a profit, just try and make a profit. Just start small, assign a bankroll, follow a few tipsters, or sign up for some tools and apply them, and just see if you like it, right? See if you enjoy it. If you've only ever made a loss, try and challenge yourself as to do something differently in a different way that we maybe are recommending, and just see if you can make a profit, and then build it from there. If you find success, build upon it. Go and maybe you make some profit, you build that into your bankroll and follow another tipster, or do something, increase your staking, and just take it like that. So I think some people feel they need to be instantly successful and instantly make a lot of money, as if they need to prove that to themselves or to other people. Well, no, you don't, and that's often rushing into it can be counterproductive. So if you take your time, build up slowly, and realize that we all sitting here placed our first bet one day, right? We all start somewhere, one small step, and to do it on that basis, just take it slowly and then build it up and see how you like it and see what you like to bet upon and when you like to bet and if it's actually for you. Some people it is not. So that's what I would advise.
I guess the biggest problem that we have, it's the mistake that the guy, the new better, right? He enters here next week, he wants to earn a lot of money on betting and he can work on everywhere. They think it's kind of very easy to do.
They do, and they come from the perspective of how hard can it be? How hard can it be to beat the bookmaker? I know more than him. Look, I know about my football team, or I know about NFL betting, and then they don't take into account, well, the bookmaker knows a lot more than you, and that's before you even taking their vig. So good luck if you come in with that attitude. But I think everybody has that attitude to begin with, and that needs to go. You need to realize that that's not true.
Yes, and the bookie have more numbers than you, and the vig, as you said too. So it's really hard to beat them in the long period.
It is, and the bookmaker, unless there's a reason that the bookmaker doesn't know it, well then, if there's an injury news or some particular aspect of a particular market, the likelihood is already been factored in. So it's not news to them. They already know this and a lot more. So yeah, it's that naivety absolutely catches a lot of people out, and it's important to not fall for it.
And they frustrate themselves with this and give up really fast as the people know how to work with this, because it's not easy, not really nothing easy on that.
No, it's very difficult, and yeah, it's you need to challenge your mindset and you need to come in with a different approach of saying, look, I don't know enough. I need expertise help. I need expert help to make a profit here. And that's where companies like ourselves hopefully can come in and fill that gap and say, look, you're taking on big companies that know so much and have really clever systems and people in place to always beat you. So, you need a lot of help to actually beat them.
Yes, and you need to put a lot of energy on it too. A lot of work, exactly. A lot of time.
That can be rewarding. We'll get that back in time, but it's not like you and I are working a job and we're getting paid $20 an hour. We work 5 hours, we've got $100. It doesn't work like that in betting, does it? We could put five hours in and we're down $100. So
and you lose $100 in 5 hours. It's the positive.
Exactly. So yeah, it's tough.
We have one more question for you, Peter. Look into the future. What are the plans for Smart Betting Club, and how do you see the betting world evolving in the next years?
So my plans at the moment, I really enjoy running SBC. I've got a really good team. I was looking to expand a bit more into North America. That's been proven quite challenging, the amount of time and resources. Really what I'm focused on at the moment is doing next year's networking bash, making that a lot bigger, hopefully ticketed. I think there's a lot to come from that, a lot of value to come from that for people interested in that. So not we've seen with Bet Bash, obviously I've not been to it, but I've seen what Spanky's done there, and clearly there's a lot of appetite, and from the conversations I had in the UK and Europe, there is there too. So that's really what I'm keen to do. In terms of the betting market, but what's happening in the US is very different to what's happening in the UK and no doubt in Brazil. So we're all different timelines. What we're seeing is a big companies consolidating, taking over the market, and there's not much upside from our point of view with that. When you've got Flutter, who own Sky Bet, Betfair, Paddy Power, Betfair, and then you've got Entain. You've got these big 888 and William Hill. You've got these big companies taking over. So that's not encouraged. I don't like that. And I guess what we'll see more of is more black market. We're seeing that in the UK. we'll see a shift back to that in those markets where they're heavily regulated, and probably a little bit more on the crypto side of it, in terms of exchange and sending money and depositing withdrawals. And the issue with exchanges, and they are quite popular, is liquidity. And I think things like crypto can really help expand that and increase that, because you maybe don't have the same border challenges that you would have, and also getting money in at the commission levels would hopefully reduce from that perspective. Because even with Betfair at 2% commission, I don't know what it is in Betfair Brazil, but 2% commission, that's still quite a large chunk of money when you're betting seriously. So if that can be reduced, that would be welcome. But yeah, in terms of overall, it really depends on where we are, because we see what happens in one country, we see the polar opposite in another one, for the various reasons that we discussed.
Here in Brazil, in Betfair, there are some accounts that have 6%.
Yeah, wow,
it's big.
It doesn't sound much until you actually know it is.
Until you shit it.
Yeah. So you see the difference. 2% is not much. It's like the financial advisors. They say, "I'll give you some financial advice, but it's only going to be 3%." And I'm like, well, yeah, that stacks up. When you're dealing with big sums of money, it's a lot of money in real terms.
Yes, it's because the people don't know that as you work on big markets. I mean, I don't know, like a soccer Premier League. Your edge is kind of 2% when you find something to do it, right?
Yeah.
So you lose all the edge betting on that.
Yeah, 6% to do what?
Yeah. It's not easy to get technology. 6% of value and something.
No, absolutely not. So yeah, immediately you've got a really high barrier to actually making a profit when you have to take into account 6%. It's far too high.
Yes.
So Peter, do you want to say anything else for our public, for us? If you enjoy the episode, you can do the last words.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. I hope everyone has understood me. Hopefully there's good subtitles for me. And I enjoyed chatting. I love chatting about betting. It's always a pleasure to talk about what we do and to talk to people from different parts of the world and understand what's going on there. If people are interested in what we do obviously have a lot of information that can be used around the world. I'm doing it myself in another country, and other people are applying it from Australia, Asia, South America, North America. So it's very much applicable to you. Sometimes depends upon what bookmakers you have, and maybe you're paying 6% commission, or maybe you're paying 2% commission. There's different ways that you can do things. So I'd like to think we can help anyone from anywhere around the world, and I encourage people to go and check us out. We have quite a lot of free information available at smartbettingclub.com, our website, so you can get a sense of how we operate without committing any money. And if you feel like you think you want to, see how we can help you further with more of our membership benefits, then you can sign up to that. So it's smartbettingclub.com. We're on Twitter, SBC Info, and we enjoy interacting with people on Twitter as well.
Então, pessoal, esse aqui foi o nosso 6º episódio com o Peter, uma visão um pouco diferente, uma empresa um pouco diferente. Espero que todos vocês tenham gostado. A gente aqui também foi bem legal conhecer um pouco desse universo dele. E é isso, nos vemos até o próximo. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Lembre-se de deixar o like aqui e se inscrever no nosso canal. Fechou? Valeu, galera. Passa tchauzinho, Divinão. Thank you, Peter.
Pessoal.
See ya.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.